7-day work week it's not normal, and it's not sustainable, and it's not healthy, and it's the actions of like a workaholic and someone that's like afraid to take their foot off the pedal. It's not coming from a good place. It's coming from a place of fear of stopping. Like, I'm afraid that if I have a day off, my whole career is gonna crash and burn underneath me.
Hello, Sophie Green.
Hello, Giles Paley Phillips.
We've got a guest with us today.
We
although
have.
You can't actually see her on screen.
A different guest to our usual sorts of guests. One that snores and is completely blind and doesn't know where she is or what's going on.
It's like the podcast pug.
Yeah, our little mascot, podcast pug. Little Maisie.
I thought today we could talk about something I've been thinking about recently. And it's something that we talk about a lot, is ambition and like what we want to do in our lives. And we've often, both of us got, nice squeaky sound there. We've both got like high ambitions for what we want to do in our creative lives and our creative work. But what I've been thinking a lot about is like how I can balance my well-being, because obviously when you're an ambitious person, you often have to deal with the setbacks, the rejections, the mental health issues, the creative blocks, and obviously all these things affect our well-being. How do you balance your well-being and your ambitions?
To be honest with you, that's something I've not quite worked out yet. It's something that I've been jumping around on constantly since I became self-employed, actually. It feels like I've got two separate buckets. I've got my work bucket and my life bucket, which encompasses, relationships and friendships and family and my own personal self-love and stuff like that. And I think, typically very career focused. I think I'm fairly ambitious. I want to achieve the best that I can and all that good stuff. But I find that when I put more energy into that work bucket, naturally, the life bucket starts to empty slowly, like it's got a leak in it or something. And I find myself having to, take time off work to figure out, how I can spend more time with family or, see my nephews more often or whatever it might be. And then taking time off work, I then see the work bucket starts to slowly, dissipate as well. And it's really, really hard. It is hard. And I feel like we have, as a society, we have this kind of like hustle culture mentality of like work. And then some people subscribe to the sort of like work smart, not work hard thing as well. But I think even to get to that point where you've got sort of like a passive income and stuff, that takes a lot of hard work in the beginning. So,
and luck, actually, as well, I think. I think there's a bit of luck in there too, because I've always think, I've got to work. Now, look, we can both acknowledge that we are on the ADHD spectrum. So working smart is not always easy. I would say for me, it's a challenge, it's just trying to get through the pile of list of jobs or whatever it might be. So actually working smart is always a real challenge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and being straightforward about things as well.
Yeah.
And not procrastinating and stuff like that. Because actually, I would have a much better work-life balance if I just stopped procrastinating.
Playing Candy Crush.
Playing Candy Crush. I'm, renowned for my Candy Crush addiction.
Other addictive games are available.
Yeah, jigsaw puzzles.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not just that though. Like I wake up in the morning, I wake up fairly early, but I have a reputation of waking up really late because it's not until like 11, 12 o'clock that I actually start doing productive stuff. I like to have a very relaxing morning, and I sort of, journal and drink my tea on my deck and stare out at the garden and like spend time with my dog. And so whenever I message any of my friends at like 7 or 8, they're like, wow, you're up early.
Like, that happened today.
Yeah,
you text me at like 7:45 or something, and I was like, oh my God. She wasn't lying when she said she was trying to turn that little thing around.
I wake up early. I just lie in bed for hours, playing Candy Crush or like whatever it is. And I thought to myself, do you know what? If I actually just cut out that part of my life and I like started work when I wake up or, an hour after I wake up, I'd probably have a much better work-life balance. But it's always all about that kind of compromise, right? For me, I kind of need that lazy morning start to the day because I'm not a morning person, and my most productive moments are usually in like late afternoons, evening times. And that's fine. I think it's okay. I think one part of the issue with like our mental health suffering because of how hard we work is that we beat ourselves up if we're not working hard enough. Like that's a huge piece as well, right?
Well, I would say that's part of the crux of it. Really, is that the well-being versus ambition thing, not versus, but when you're trying to marry those two things, is that feeling of guilt because if you're so ambitious that you only dedicate yourself to what you're trying to achieve in life, then it, like you said earlier, it is detrimental to your well-being because you aren't filling yourself up with the stuff that actually normally makes you feel good. And so then the guilt does, it's inevitable that you're going to start to feel guilty about stuff and guilty about every little aspect of your life or your day, That sounds really dramatic, but it does tend to sort of happen a little bit like that.
Yeah, I can imagine if you've got kids and a family and stuff as well, like even balancing that. And for me personally, I've found it tricky, like moving from having a 7-day work week to just trying to have more of like a 5-day work week. Because a 7-day work week it's not normal and it's not sustainable and it's not healthy. And it's the actions of like a workaholic and someone that's like afraid to take their foot off the pedal. It's not coming from a good place. It's coming from a place of fear of stopping. Like I'm afraid that if I have a day off, my whole career is going to crash and burn underneath me. I'm afraid if I spend time with my family, I'm not going to be able to answer emails on time and stuff like that. And
yeah, it's like I remember being like a sort of late teens and not like if you got missed out on going to the pub of a weekend or something, you felt like you were missing out on the greatest night of your life.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of thing, that feeling as well, like when you, like you say, if you're not checking your emails every single second, that you're going to miss that vital thing that actually is not that vital, really.
Yeah, and I suppose I was talking about this actually recently with someone that it's important. Actually, no, it was with you last night. I was talking to you about this last night. Like, it's really important to constantly ask yourself why you want something. Like, why do you want to earn lots of money? Why do you want the career? Why do you want this, that, and the other? Just to like check your ego and check what it is, because I've worked out that I want to be successful so that I have freedom. Like freedom is a huge piece for me. It's like something that my whole life I've been constantly trying to get freedom. Like I want the freedom, financial freedom. I want freedom to travel. I want freedom to spend time with my friends and spend time with my family and not feel guilty. And I sort of came to the realization, I was like, wow, I'm working for freedom and I'm actually preventing myself from being free by this like fear of taking a day off. It's like, what's the point of working really hard if I'm less free than I would be if I was just working a job I wasn't really that fussed about,
Going back to that, the idea of taking a time off, I don't know if applies to you, but it definitely applies to me. Even when I am physically taking a day off, I'm not mentally taking a day off.
No. Well, yeah, because you're still texting me like about work stuff, pod stuff, or other projects that we're doing, or answering emails.
It's my fault.
No, because I'm not. When you take days off, I'm usually still working. At least you take weekends off, don't you? Because you've got a family and your wife obviously works during the week, so it makes sense for you all to, as a family, take weekends off. But you're often still messaging me about work stuff on a weekend,
Yeah, and and what I'm saying is that's like physically doing work. I think actually thinking about work. Actually just thinking about, I don't know, whether it's now thinking about stories or writing or whatever it might, like a creative thing, that's nice. And like that, if you've got some downtime, actually that's a good time to do that, but it is still work. So like just being able to take yourself outside of that is very, very challenging, I think, if you are a super ambitious person.
It really is. It does become an addiction. And I think until you know it, until you've experienced that, it's hard to explain that to people. I have a friend who recently became self-employed. Actually, no, 2 friends who both started businesses around the same time. And they both said to me separately, like, oh my God, it's like I'm addicted. I can't stop. Like I used to resent working 5 days a week. And now I'm working 7 days a week, 24 hours a day constantly. And I can't get enough of it. Like it's not the same vibe as like working in an office and taking your job home with you and stressing about your meeting the next day. It's not that. It's more like loving what you're doing so much that you can't physically stop it, or having such a huge ambition that you're constantly thinking about how to get there, you know?
Yeah. How are we going to fix it?
Well, as I said, I'm still trying to work that one out for myself. I think, to be honest with you, I've worked out that it's like small things, right? Small incremental things. And we talk about this all the time on the pod with our various different guests. They always say the small things are way more sustainable to, you know, like it's no good being like, right, that's it. I'm going to completely change my
Well,
work
it's not
schedule.
sustainable, is it? To like suddenly try and change your entire being.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's not. I mean, I've worked out, for me, my main thing was I wanted to take 2 days off a week, right? Which is just normal for most people. That's standard. For me, 2 days off a week feels like crazy. It's like, why the hell? Like, what am I a slacker? Like, I don't know. It's crazy for me. So I thought, you know what? It doesn't have to be a Saturday and Sunday. Doesn't have to be 2 days next to each other. It can be just 2 days where I'm not doing work, right? And so I thought, well, how am I going to fit in the same amount of work that I do in 7 days into 5 days? And I thought, well, yeah, like maybe becoming a bit more productive in the mornings might be a thing. Like, you know, I'll still have quite a carefree morning, but instead of starting work at like 1, I'll start at like 10 or something. But yeah, it's definitely a work in progress, I would say.
Well, and it's being disciplined about that. And often these things are they're good at the beginning, but it's sustaining them, I suppose, is the key, and not falling back into those old habits again. You know, oh, maybe I will just quickly check my emails, and then an hour later, you've killed an hour.
Everyone
and then you're like, oh,
feeling.
okay, so now I'm actually behind on the next bit, and blah blah blah. So it's just being able to, put in some key things that are sustainable long term. I think even just acknowledging, like you have, like, I need to take 2 days off. I need to be working earlier in the day so that I can have have more downtime, have more me time, whatever it might be. So I think acknowledging that is obviously a great start.
Yeah, and I think the next step is like prioritizing is a huge one. Because we all have a to-do list, right? We all have a list of things we need to do. But I don't know about you, but I'm really bad at working out what are the things that I actually need to do and what are the things that I kind of don't really need to do, but I'm going to do anyway, you know, just as an extra little task for myself. And I'll never forget when I was putting on my exhibition, my impermanence exhibition a couple of years ago, and I was getting so stressed about the exhibition, and it was the run up to the show in, you know, a few weeks before. And I had so much to do, and it's like, it's not just putting together a collection of paintings. You have to like liaise with the events team who are running the opening night and the sponsorship and
your publicist
and talking to my publicist, and then my publicist is like getting me on shows or interviews and stuff, and I have to think about that and prepare for that. And it's like all this stuff is running through my head. And then my friend said to me, work out what is non-negotiable, and anything else is a bonus. So the non-negotiable was that I need to have a collection of artwork in a room hanging on the walls, and I need to have people in that room on the opening night. The drinks, if there's no drinks, whatever, it's not the end of the world. There can be a compromise, or the food, or the goodie bags, or, you know, having the photographer turn up and all that stuff. It's not the end of the world. The minute I sort of let go of all of the stuff that actually wasn't non-negotiable, it kind of all fell into place anyway, and I focused on getting the stuff done that actually needed to get done, and then the stress kind of like fizzled away for the rest of the stuff, and it was less of this feeling of pressure and stress. And I've taken that away and just use it in every aspect of my life now. Whenever I'm stressing about like a project or a thing, I'm like, what is the actual non-negotiable thing that I need here? We need a podcast with with a microphone and a guest.
and a pug.
And a pug who's snoring. I don't know if you'll pick up on the snoring and.
I hope so. I think that's a nice little background.
It's quite soporific.
Well, some people listen to podcasts when they go to sleep, so it might be really nice.
Cute.
Yeah, I agree. I think like that's a brilliant way of looking at it. What's non-negotiable? Like, what do I need to make sure happens? And then everything else is maybe a bit of a bonus. Obviously, your exhibition went down a storm, and all those other things did come into place. So you didn't need to worry about them. But I guess that's part of the well-being thing, is that we do worry about stuff a lot. We worry about our time. Time, I think, is is the most precious commodity we have as human beings, and it ebbs away very quickly.
Oh yeah, totally.
And sometimes we take it for granted, and we don't appreciate it. And I think that's probably for me is like, and obviously what you're saying as well. A lot of the balance that we can have between our well-being and our ambition is dictated to by time.
Yeah, 100%. And I always think, what are you going to regret when you look back on your life? Are you going to regret, I didn't make that much money, I didn't hit that figure, that target, I didn't earn this much money, I didn't reach this position in my business, I didn't do this, I didn't do that? Or are you going to look back and think, I wish I'd spent more time with my family, I wish I'd spent more time with my kids while they were still really young, because those years have gone now. I wish I'd spent more time with my friends and like gone on more trips and stuff like that. And yeah, it's kind of remembering what's actually important, I think, is the crux of it. But obviously that's easier said than done. Like when you're in the trenches and you're like going through the motions of your life.
Well, and again, like it's okay to be like, I'm not. This podcast shouldn't be about like you should dumb down your ambitions or like actually you should be putting everything else in front of what you want to do and achieve in life. That's not. It's about compromise and balance. But there is something obviously very exciting about having ambition and wanting to do exciting things and like take yourself to places you wouldn't take yourself and create things that you'd never think possible to create.
Yeah, I think it's in that sense it's important also to distinguish between having ambition and your mental health and your life kind of taking a backseat because your ambition is taking over.
Yeah.
And then just having a job that you hate and actually being stressed with work, because that's a whole different thing. And that's when you need to actually take a look at like, what are you actually doing for a living? Like, why are you doing it? Is there anything that you can change there? Because I think there's a lot of people as well who are just doing a job that they don't love. They're going through the motions and their mental health is taking a hit because of that. But that's a very different thing entirely, really, to this hustle, like having ambition kind of culture.
I mean, I guess for our listeners, you and I work in the creative industries where if you like ambition and determination to get to a certain place is kind of like, it's the be all and end all. Like you have to we work in extremely competitive industries. And so it's like almost a rite of passage that you have to have a level of ambition or a level of dedication.
Even being self-employed in general.
You're
solely responsible for making your own income.
Exactly, yeah. So for any freelancers, whatever, that same thing. And so there is always an onus from get-go that you might have to work 7 days a week. You might have to put in all those hours.
Yeah, I
mean, it's sort of knowing that about the gig.
For sure. It's making me think about when we did an interview, like a show, a couple of months ago, didn't we? And we're sitting in the green room before, talking to other people in the industry, in different industries, like film industry and podcasting and stuff, and everyone's just talking about, what are you working on at the moment? Like, I've just written this and I'm making this and blah, and everyone's talking about all the things that they're doing, not in a competitive way, like comparing and like, I'm doing this. It's just that's what people talk about when you're in a creative world or a freelancer world. Can't help but just talk about work because it is your livelihood. It's what sets you on fire. It's your passion, and it can be all consuming, which can then become an issue.
Wouldn't it be nice in those green rooms if someone said, what you doing at the moment, and you were able to say something obviously very positive that you were doing, but also, do you know what, I've been trying to find a bit more balance in my life, and actually, I've been doing this, but I've also been taking some time out to like actually refresh myself.
Yeah, what have you been working on at the moment? I've been making this like Lego sculpture with my son, and like we've been spending some real good time together. Totally. It's so important, and as we keep saying, it's easier said than done. But there are ways of reassessing, I think, and it's something I think that we need to talk about more in the freelance world, and not just freelance, but in any business. Lots of business people as well who have this problem too.
Yeah, and I would say like people that are employing people that are freelancers need to be a bit more aware and have, because, as a freelancer, you haven't got an HR department, you haven't got, you don't get sick pay, you are having to like a lot of people do burn out when they're doing freelancing. So I think it's a duty for people that are employing freelancers to be aware that you can't lean on people to work 7 days a week, 24 hours a day.
Yeah, totally.
It's not, it's just not, you just don't get the best work out of people for a start. And that you do end up like, you can end up breaking people a little bit.
Yeah, totally.
Not to sound too like grandiose about it, but.
Yeah, it's totally true. Cool.